Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Road podcast and from the blog A Bus on a Dusty Road, which is all about living life as a global citizen. Today I want to talk a little bit about what is an expat. An expat or expatriate is one of those words that you hear sometimes, and somebody might say to you, well, I'm an expat, but what does it exactly mean to be an expat? I can say that I have been an expat almost my entire adult life. And the reason why is I'm a person who has lived outside of their native country. I'm not an immigrant, meaning I haven't immigrated to these countries. I'm still a U.S. citizen, but I am someone who has lived outside of my own native country. There's basically 8 main types of expats that I've identified. So even among the expats themselves, there's different types of expats. The first one is an expat where their company sends them. This might be that a company in the United States, Europe, or some other place sends somebody and their family to go live and work overseas. They usually send them to a specific location because there's a specific skill that they need that this person has that nobody else has in the location where they're sending them. Sometimes they could send them for as little as a year. Sometimes it may be a couple years. I've known other people that have literally worked for the same company overseas in the same location for, 10 or 20 years. So these type of expats, usually they will, get a salary. Their kids' schooling will be provided for in an international school. They will get some home leaves to be able to go home, which means that they can fly to their home countries. And that, the country, a lot of times the companies will give them a car and a driver. And for many of them, they will also help them pay for any type of extra taxes or other things that they might have. So obviously, when a company sends over somebody like this, they're paying a lot of money and they're only doing it because they have a very specific skill that they need. And it's usually a mid to higher level type of employee. Another expat is one that might work for the embassy or for a government agency. They will then be assigned, like, for example, for the U.S. government, they might be assigned to a location from 2 to 4 years. And for some departments, maybe a bit longer. And they will, come and they will live over here in embassy-provided housing, usually. And they can usually bring their American car here. And they will come here on a diplomatic passport or under a diplomatic status. So they can kind of be a little different than other expatriates because they have sort of a diplomatic status. And they have the embassy behind them so that the country of where they're at may look upon them as a little bit of a different kind of expat. For Americans, they usually have what's called an APO box privileges, which means that they can have packages sent home. They can get packages delivered to them just as they were in the United States. Another type of expat would be those who come to teach. This would be kind of like the teachers and educators. And the truth is that, most expat communities could not function without the educators also coming overseas to educate their children. Because what is important for a lot of expatriates, especially in Europe or America, is that if they have children with them, they want to make sure that their children have proper schooling so that they can get into universities in the United States or other places around the world. So this would be what I would call the next sort of essential group, is that would be those that are coming over to teach in specifically the expat schools. Of course, there's many that come over to teach English, that come over to teach even in some of the local schools here in Vietnam. There's a lot of expatriates that are teaching English or teaching other things like that to Vietnamese children. There are those who came on their own, that they decided they wanted to live in a country. And so maybe they try to find a job here and they get hired on with a company. And so they would be what would be considered more like a local hire. Many countries will have visa restrictions. So they will not be able to come on a tourist visa. They might have to come with a business visa and switch over that visa to a work visa. So they might have to find a company that's willing to do that for them. And depending upon where they go, it could be easy, and in other places it may be very difficult. A lot of times these same expats or local hires may pay for their own housing. If they have children, they may need to pay for their own children's schooling. So basically they would be hired like they were somebody who was locally hired here. They would not have been brought over by the company. They were not brought over by the government. They would have been someone that came here and then found a job that found a job to work. Another one would be, this would be where the category that I'm in would be business owners. And this would be people who live overseas simply because they own an overseas-based business. They're business owners, and this kind of expat, we're responsible for paying for everything ourselves. This would include housing, school fees, transportation, any home leave to go back home, travel, everything. So, this is totally different in that you'd be owning a company, you'd be completely self-supporting and self-sustaining, and you'd have to be able to earn the income overseas to be able to afford these type of luxuries. In many parts of the world, rent can be very high, so it can be extremely prohibitive for people to come over to start a business in a country. And other places, it can be cheaper. It just really depends upon the country of where you're going. Another type of expat would be those that come to do charity work. And sometimes these also fall under government agencies, and sometimes they don't. Because there's many government agencies that might be charity-based, or there may be some that just came over to work with a specific type of charity. And for many of these expats, for some of them, they may be happy to live a simple life. They might even be fine to live out into a small village. In fact, that might be something that they need to do for their charity-based work. They might be part of a Christian or religious organization. They could even be, a priest or somebody else like that who's working for a Christian-based organization, and so they are working and living overseas. This kind of expat is usually very passionate about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And, many of them will be willing and very happy to live outside the normal expat lifestyle, and in fact, to live a very simple sort of lifestyle. I've met many of these kind of expats during my time here, and most of them are just wonderful. I've met some Catholic priests who, did work in the slums and in Thailand. I've met others who are just running charity organizations overseas and are more than willing to live the local lifestyle, and in fact, even in some dangerous areas where they may be specifically helping specific people in an area of the country. The other one kind might be an expat who is married to a local. And so, because the fact that they have married somebody from a specific country, they decide they're going to live back there. And, this kind of expat may actually eventually get citizenship. So maybe they're not really considered an expat anymore, maybe more of an immigrant. But this would be somebody that is living in a specific country because they have a relationship with somebody in that country. And the last part of kind of expat, that it would be somebody who's been retired or independently wealthy. This could be like somebody in the United States who says, I'm going to go retire in Costa Rica, or, somebody who says, I'm going to go retire in Thailand. I have some friends that I know that spend a couple months in the out of the year in Thailand. They have an apartment there. So, it could really be like an expat who's just decided that they like this part of the world and they want to spend part of their retirement over there. Some of these expats may work, and they might find some work that they can do while still being retired and get their retirement income in. Others may just decide it's much cheaper for them to live overseas on their retirement income than to be able to live in their home country. So an expat basically is, someone who lives overseas, but even among the expats themselves, there are many different types of expats. And if you're going to be an expat, you need to kind of decide or understand which kind of expat you're going to be and why. And of course, according to which expat you are, there could be a huge difference in all the different types of packages, what kind of money you get, and what kind of housing, or if you have children, you're schooling for your children, if you want money for your home leave to be able to go home. All of that will really matter in the package you get and who you are working for. And if you're not working for someone and you're just decided to live in another country, well, then that's also an expat, but it's just a different type of expat, somebody who's not actually working overseas, but living overseas. This is Anita from Dusty Roads, and we hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll look at our blog called A Bus on a Dusty Road. I have quite a few blogs about different types of expats, different type of contracts, what you need to look for when you're when you decide to become an expat, what type of contract you should look for. I will put some of the links below so that you can look at them. If you have any questions or comments, please do let me know. And I would be very happy to be able to answer any of them. Please, give us a thumbs up. And if you like this, recommend it to your friends because it's all about living life as a global citizen. Thank you so much for listening.